Wakey wakey, hands off snakey. Welcome to another episode of Rectifying Your Mistakes with Dave. First on the list for today, the fuel gauge, which was working fine until I tried to tighten it up onto the dash using its supplied bracket. But here's the problem when you buy a very cheap fuel gauge. When you tighten this bracket onto those two poles there, it forces it back into the dash, and the only thing holding it onto the dash is this very thin plastic lip. So if you tighten too far, that micro thin lip breaks off and your dash has got nowhere to do. In the process of doing that, when it half fell out, I must have had the ignition on, and the bracket that I was using hit those two terminals and blew it up. So that's junk. Luckily, however, I still have my old gauge that I had on the rat rod, which is actually nicer, and it's got a chrome lip. But it is another cheapo one, which was matched to its sender unit, which was the reverse, so I can't just put this in. I need to change the sender in the tank. And the tank is up there, the old tank, the old marine tank I was using, so I need to take the sender out of that, put it in my tank, wire this up. I like this one actually because it's got spade terminals, so I can cover them, you know, with the covered spades, and then there's no risk of the terminals touching each other, so I'm happy with that. And it actually does feel like a nicer gauge anyway. So let me dismantle the tank. Right, safety first, boys and girls. Disconnect the battery and just remove it completely, because I'm going to have an open tank when I do this. Oh, I'm so glad I made a removable panel to get access. Okay, next. New sender at the ready. I just need to hope that it fits in the hole. I mean, it should. These are generally a universal fit. Signal wire detached. Now when I take this out, I'm going to compare where the float is to the new one, because on this particular one that's installed, it was showing empty even when it was like nearly half full. So I know it's way too low or high, I'm not sure. I'll figure that out in a second. Okay. So that is the current sender, which works, so I'm not going to ditch that. I would just need a matching gauge for it, which I don't have. So let's see. They're both at that level. They're actually pretty similar. Yeah, the difference is this one's got a shorter reach. You know what, I'll try it. I can always fit it and then hook up the gauge, see where it is, and come back in here. You know, I'll leave this panel off. Obviously I'll need to screw this down so I don't have fumes, and then try the gauge. I might as well set it properly while I can get access to it, eh? Right, let's get this back in here. Well, not back in for the first time. Remember, these screw holes are actually not symmetrical. You have to line them up or it won't fit. And that's basically so that the the float is always kind of in the middle of the tank, which is really handy if you don't have like baffles in the bottom of your tank that this doesn't. This is just a big box, so there's nothing to stop the fuel from moving around. What was I doing? Oh yeah, let's get this back on. Reconnect. Okay, so I'll hook up the signal wire, remove this highly flammable sender because it's covered in fuel. And then hook up the battery temporarily until I've got my gauge wired in and working. Right, onto the front and get this gauge sorted. Okay, moment of truth. Ooh, look at that. It's actually showing just above empty, which is where it is. That's great. Right, what I've got actually, I've got 2 cans of gas that I'm going to fill up the tank and see where it goes. Okay, that's a full can of the red one, which is, what size is that? 10 litres. Okay, I'm guessing that my tank is probably 30 to 40 litres, so I should have checked that when I had, oh wait a minute, maybe I can check that. No, because I've put the big brace over the label. Oh, anyway, I would say that it's probably maybe a 50 or 60 litre tank. Hey Alan, give us a shout. You'll probably know since you own this tank. Tell me what it is. Anyway, because there was some fuel in the tank and I put 10 litres in, I'm going to guess that the gauge at the moment should go up to about quarter full. Let us find out. And it barely moved. What to do? Right, to me that would suggest that the float level is resting too low. Too high. Yeah, the float level is resting too high, so by the time the fuel gets up to a quarter, it's only just starting to move the float. So I need to bend the float level down a bit. You're going to find when you're installing custom tanks, it's all going to be trial and error. So I think the problem with this sender is it's not actually activating until it's about there, and I think the float is kind of sitting there at the moment at that point, so it's really not triggering anything. So I want to extend this down to about there, which I can do by loosening that little grub screw, extending this rod outwards so that instead of sitting there it'll actually sit about there because of the float level. Right, let's give that a shot. Reinstalled. Let's see where we're at now. Please go to quarter. Yes! Okay. Right, so as I say, it's trial and error until you get that sweet spot. But what I'll actually have to do is pretty much run it dry just to make sure that it is actually showing empty kind of before it runs dry. There's no point showing empty if it's between empty and there's no point if you run out of fuel before it gets to empty. That's worse than it showing slightly inaccurately. Okay, but for now I'll reinstall my panel and tidy this up again, get on to the next thing. Okay guys. While we're in the area, we may as well hook up the tachometer gauge thing, and since I'm going to wire that up, I might as well redo my timing, since I didn't really do that since I put the carb back on, and it's a wee bit lumpy. So tack first. Right, wiring the tack. It's pretty much the same as wiring the fuel gauge. You've got your red positive, you've got your white positive, which is for the backlight, so I'm not going to do that just now because I'm going to hook that into the light system and it'll be on a dimmer. And the green is your signal wire, and obviously the black is the earth. So because they're just gauges, they don't require a whole lot of power, I will just be hooking them into the fuel gauge wires. Right, let us see if it works. Contact. I'm going to let it run for 5 minutes, let it warm up, make sure it's super smooth, and then I'll get my timing light connected and we'll see where we're at. I want to set the revs at 600 RPM, and then I can set my timing light at 600 and see where we're at. Okay. So setting your timing, quick recap. First thing before you forget, unplug your vacuum advance from your distributor, and like it would normally go from there to the distributor, pull that out, put in a cap on your carburetor. Do that first before you forget. Then obviously start your car, get it up to the revs that you like. I'm wanting to set mine at 600 because I'm setting my gun at 600. So I adjusted the idle up when it was running up to 600, so the engine's running at 6, the light will be flashing in time. Okay, so from your gun, obviously, you've got your positive, negative. One goes to a battery, one goes to the earth, and your other wire is picking up the signal from number 1 spark plug. So when that sends a spark through to the spark plug, it will send a signal through this wire to the gun, and that's when it flashes. Okay, you can see on my harmonic balancer my white timing light, and I want to see that at the second jaggy bit there, right? And I have a feeling it's not there at the moment, so let's fire it up and see where we're at. And of course, to adjust where that is, you would rotate your distributor. So on mine, my hold down bracket, it's a 14mm. So I've loosened that off for now so that I can rotate this back and forward. I shouldn't have to move it much, if at all. $600. Right, let's have a look. So yeah, it was quite a bit out. So I've adjusted it now. I've tightened down the distributor hold down bracket, and now I just need to unplug the plug from the carburetor and plug in the vacuum advance from the distributor. Start it up again. Probably need to adjust the idle. Well, it's just peachy. My neighbour gave me peaches off his peach tree. How very nice of him. They feel a bit hard. Need to let them ripen. Anyway, I'm getting away from the subject here. So hopefully I don't have to do that again. But you know what, if I do, it's not that hard, really. And I know that my timing light works, so we are good for that. Okay, that's me for today, because I just can't be bothered. It's a bit humid today. Tomorrow, I suppose I better make a promise, because I have to get something done and I keep putting it off. And that would be the brake pedal and bracket. It's a big job to rectify the problem, but it's got to be done. It's not going to do itself. So I guess I'm making that promise for tomorrow. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. Please hit the like, share, subscribe, all of the above, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for joining me today. Bye bye. it.